All right, so we've been talking about shifting demand, shifting it to the left or shifting it to the right. We're going to go into a little bit more detail about the different shifters of demand and how does that really affect the demand curve. So if we remember the economic determinants of demand, remember the demand function is a function of its own price, the price of related goods, and income. These are the economic determinants of demand. And all three of them, as you can see, relate to price. Usually whenever we talk about economic determinants, they're relating to price in some way. So the economic determinants of demand are its own price, price of related goods, and income. But we also have non-economic determinants of demand. Of course, we're human, and we're not going to base everything solely on price. So these non-economic determinants of demand are actually listed in this chapter as tastes and preferences. The different non-economic determinants of demand are things such as composition of population, attitude towards nutrition and health, attitude towards public safety, lifestyles, technical forces, and advertising. So we're going to go through over the next couple of slides all of these different non-economic determinants of demands and give you a little bit of examples of each one. So let's dive into them. What do you say? Well, we're going to start off with, first but definitely not the best, because they're all more or less equal, is the composition of population. The composition of population plays a role in the demand for particular commodities. So let's think about our population, our age group in the United States. The 65-year-olds are a growing population because of medical advancements. People are living longer, and that particular population is actually growing in size. As that population grows in size, we see that demand for certain commodities begins to go up. Commodities like healthcare, they begin to go up. Our assisted living aspects, in-home health, all of those aspects will begin to go up as long as just medical needs. We also see another thing. We see a decline in the whole milk consumption. We see that the 65-year-old, this older age group, is not drinking as much whole milk, and they might be drinking more like number 2 or 2% or 1% milk, or 1%, 2% types of milk, in terms of trying to be a little healthier in terms of fat content. We're also seeing an increase in fruits and vegetables. It's been linked that fruits and vegetables are healthy for you. We've known that for years, and as this population begins to age, as we have an aging or a larger population of 65-year-olds who are caring more about their health than they were at a younger age, and that group begins to grow, we're seeing that they're consuming more fruits and vegetables. Now let's think about the composition of the population. Maybe we're going to talk about different ethnic groups. The fast-growing ethnic groups of Asian and Hispanic ethnic groups, those two groups are growing at the fastest rate here in the United States. As a result, guess what we're seeing more spring up around in the United States? We're seeing a higher demand for Cajun food, Mexican food, and other Southern-style foods. We are actually seeing a lot more fast food that are of this Hispanic or Mexican-style foods popping up at different places around the United States. Here in Wyoming, we can name a couple of them, and specifically here in Casper, we can name a couple of Hispanic fast food chains that are spurring up, and they're actually growing. And we are seeing Hispanic food restaurants popping up, and more Southern-style foods popping up all across the United States. The next aspect is, what about attitudes towards nutrition and health? So medical research has linked tobacco use to cancer. Well, what have we been seeing the demand for tobacco doing? It's falling. The attitudes towards wanting to be a healthier person and attitudes towards being more nutritious and healthy, and whenever they come out with research linking something like tobacco to cancer, we see that tobacco, actually the demand for tobacco falls. It leads to a change in habits of smoking. Concerns about calories now, fitness, and health has actually led consumers to change eating habits. They're eating less calorie foods, and now we're actually seeing restaurants putting calorie counters on their menus. That was brought on by a demand from the consumers to be more nutritious, more health conscious. Emphasis on the reduction of animal fats. As more research comes out and more doctors are emphasizing less animal fat consumption, we see that the demand for dairy and red meat may decline, and dairy and red meat has declined over the years, and at times it comes back, but it's often due to reports from the medical professional or medical field saying, let's reduce animal fats. Meanwhile, whenever stuff like dairy and red meat decline because of reduction in animal fats, we see the demand for poultry and fish increase. Then we get into, and let me back up real quick, another aspect that comes into the composition of population is the distribution of households and sizes. So let's talk about that as it plays back to the composition of population. Sorry, I skipped over that. So single person households are increasing. We're seeing a lot more, or more than half of households are 1 to 2 people now, rather than large families. So think about how a person that has, or a household that's feeding 2 people might react to a household that might be feeding, say, 6 people. You're going to see like single serve foods or single person or TV dinners, things like that, are going to be a lot more popular as household size decreases. We're not going to be buying family packs anymore. We're going to be buying packs for 1 or 2 people. And we're going to see that actually changes how packaging comes about. So the next one, now that we've talked about composition of population and the attitudes towards nutrition and health, the next one that I'd like to get into is the attitudes towards food safety. So food safety is a major concern with consumers, whether it's be the residual pesticides or herbicides in food. Whether you could argue one way or the other, that is a concern for consumers. They want to know that their food is pesticide free and herbicide free whenever they're consuming it. That's why we're seeing actually an increase in demand for aspects such as organic food. Antibiotics and hormones in livestock-based food, that's becoming a concern for consumers. We're seeing that with the niche markets such as all natural and even organic beef and organic food and organic meats and all natural meats. It's because they're worried about antibiotics and hormones in their livestock-based food. The aspect of irradiation, nitrates in food, additives and preservatives, sugar and artificial coloring, all of that has led to consumers to be more cautious and care more about their food safety. And it's always been a major concern with consumers, especially whenever you bring in 2 to 3 different cases such as salmonella in poultry, peanut butter in seafood, E. coli bacteria in meat packing plants. And any time that we have any major outbreak of any kind of disease that's found or bacteria found within our food, it leads people to have a larger concern with consumers. Now here's an interesting fact. Food safety typically shifts the demand curve of a good to the left, ceteris paribus. So let's say that E. coli breaks out in meat packing plants. We'll see a lower demand for beef or for meat for a while until that E. coli outbreak has been contained. We see that whenever people are concerned with whether or not their food is healthy, they just don't consume it. They find alternatives, and it shifts that demand curve to the left. The unfortunate aspect about food safety is that it often has a negative impact on the agricultural industry and on the food industry, and it will typically shift those demand curves to the left, especially for the good in question.